Now it is my honor to introduce family members. And these family members are individuals who are directly impacted by addiction. The state of Wisconsin has once a year a recovery rally on the lawn of the Capitol, typically in September. This year, 2017, will be our 4th year for doing that. And 2 of the past 3 years, I've had individuals come to me at the recovery rally seeking assistance. These are individuals who typically are on opioids, typically heroin. And they come to me because I think I'm pretty known in the community, but I'm also out there and I'm talking to people, meeting people at the recovery rally. Last year we had anywhere, I think, between 600 to 1,000 people. And I would encourage you to attend if you've not been. But during this particular last year of 2016, during this particular day, Julie Flood, who's going to be presenting to you, her husband and her son were there. And her son was in need of help. And they introduced me to her son. And I gathered a number of other individuals and together came up with a plan. He was brought to the emergency room that day, and the plan was for him to go to a provider called Tellurian Monday morning for an admission to detox, for an admission to treatment. They arrived Monday morning to Tellurian. He was asked, "What's your county of residence?" It's not Dane County. He was refused. He's not done well since. He's in jail. And Julie and her other son are here today to tell you that story and to share with you what should have happened and what should happen when addressing addiction for anyone that comes to the front door. So let me first introduce Julie Flood as our next speaker.
Hello, I'm Julie Flood. This is my son, Jacob Flood. He came just as a perspective from a sibling's point of view with this addiction. So Austin was 15 when we learned that he was using. So between the ages of 15 and 18, he was placed in 2 residential treatment facilities, both 41 days stay. He was placed in 2 mental health facilities, and he spent 5 months in a military school. Today, he is incarcerated. He, at the age of 18, was the first time he was incarcerated. So it didn't take him long to start going down that path after the struggle we had with him until he got to the age of 18. Basically, before that, we were just trying to keep him alive because he would use anything and everything, and it started with cough syrup. Cough syrup was his favorite drug of choice, and he would drink at least 10 bottles of NyQuil. So he overdosed once, and we almost lost him. Thank God we didn't, but you know, it's still, we wait for that call every day. He's 21 today. 21 makes it a little difficult because, well, you can drink at 21, and so now he feels like he's missing out. And you know, you can certainly understand that. I was 21 myself, and that kind of makes it a little bit more difficult as well. So in September of 2016, we attended, as AJ was talking to you about, the recovery rally at the Capitol, and he was all ready for help. He had been using that day. He was approached by an amazing team of individuals that were recovery coaches. And I have to say, impressed with that team. They really motivated him to want to change, to start that process of change. So we decided we would take him to the local emergency room to get him medically cleared. And the emergency room was a little confused because they said that usually with people in state insurance, they don't do it this way. So we had to, but we did the process anyway. And by that Monday morning, we went to Tellurian and we were told that we could not put him in a treatment facility because he did not have the funding in his county to do so. And that day I looked at his face and he was just destroyed, you know, and not only that, it was the family that was destroyed. The family, his brothers that, you know, had to listen because you're built up this hope and you were given these resources that were empty in the end. So I think that's my biggest thing today is we don't have resources. We have pretty pamphlets and flyers and unrealistic treatment hopes and dreams, but none are realistic, not in that case. So, and I don't know how many people who use and have a criminal record that have money. I mean, they're usually stealing. They're at the lowest they're going to ever get. So, Jacob would like to share a couple of words just from a brother's perspective.
Hi. Okay. Sorry, I don't do this regularly, believe it or not. When I was in the 3rd grade, I was at the point where I had the perfect life for a small elementary child. I didn't have any huge problem with myself or anybody in my family. I had annual gatherings with my family members. I would go visit my cousins on Christmas, on Thanksgiving, every year, until the next year. Everything had changed at that point. My older brother was sent away, and at that point, I didn't know what to do with myself. Because that was my first time being away from my own family member, let alone being away from somebody as close as my own brother. And that was only the lightest thing that had happened in a course of about 5 or 6 years that would pass. Over the next few years, he had been in multiple recovery centers, military school, even going to jail at certain points in his life. And everything had been different for me at that point. With how depressed I was, I had started to lose friends in school. I only had one person to turn to, and he already knew everything to talk about, so I didn't want to constantly talk about my problems to him because I didn't want to feel overwhelming to him. I didn't have anybody to turn to. I didn't know who to talk to. After a while, his addiction ended up getting a lot worse. He had been drunk one Thanksgiving, tried to strangle my dad, and that ended up ruining any chance of me ever seeing my family on Christmas again or on Thanksgivings. It's hard to go through these things and see a loved one talk or constantly changing, not knowing how to stop. It's something that can break a person, even though they're not the one that's actually doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian Jacob. You know, last night when I was with him for dinner, Jacob was sharing some of the story, obviously, in preparation for this morning. And something that he said really struck a note with me. And it was about that Monday morning going to Tellurian. And it was about an expectation that he would get his brother back. Treatment is about getting your family member back. So we need to raise the bar. We need to raise the expectations. First treatment failure, first treatment episode failure should be unacceptable. We need to do a much, much better job.